Alright, so welcome back to the channel. Um, as you may or may not know, the MLS playoffs will be kicking off this weekend, starting out with my Red Bulls taking on the Union at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And I thought, with that being said, what better way to preview that than to venture away from the realm of the Premier League for just one video and focus on the MLS. So we're going to start from west to east, and the first game we're going to talk about is Portland versus Minnesota, which is going to be played at Providence Park on Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So obviously Portland, they've only beaten Minnesota twice since Minnesota joined the league in 2017, and both of those games, they came early on in Minnesota's MLS life. And Minnesota is unbeaten in their last 7 against the Timbers. It's for that reason that I actually think Minnesota will be victorious at Providence Park 2-1. And this next prediction is Vancouver versus SKC, which will be taking place on Saturday, which just after the Red Bulls game. And traditionally, obviously, you'd bet on SKC. They're the better team on paper. They're the number 3 seed. Vancouver's the number 6 seed. SKC has always been the dominant team in this fixture. Over the last time they played, Vancouver won. Their 2-1 win at BC Place was the first time they won, though, against SKC since September 2017. And that was when Eric Hurtado bagged the lone goal. But I'm going to go against the odds. Despite all I'm saying, I think Vancouver is going to win. Vancouver, obviously, we know, if you watched MLS, how amazing they've been with the form of Ryan Gauld and Brian White in their last 12 games. And they've surged into the playoffs. Meanwhile, SKC have lost their last 3. Now, put that down to them being without some key players, like Alan Pulido, who was out with an injury returning for the playoffs. Put that down, they've been playing Gadi Kinda at center forward, which is quite the interesting choice considering he's not that good of a goal threat. And yeah, they've been without that goal threat other than Johnny Russell and Daniel Saloy, who've been playing on either side of the striker. Now with Pulido back, they do look dangerous, but I think that SKC will fall to Vancouver on penalties. And here's how I think it'll go. Brian White will bag the first to give Vancouver an early lead. Johnny Russell will score a late equalizer. And extra time, Daniel Saloy will get all the SKC fans' hopes up. And then, late on in extra time, Ryan Gauld will score from close range to take the game to penalties, where Vancouver will inevitably be victorious. Now, it is to be noted that Alan Pulido will probably not go the full 90 in this game and will most likely be replaced probably early on in the second half if he does start, and if he comes on, then it won't be for a extended time. It will be for maybe 30 to 40 minutes, maybe even less than that. With that being said, I do think that SKC does have a really good chance of going through in this game, but despite that, I do think that Vancouver will advance here. Next up, we have Seattle versus RSL. This game, typically in history, has actually been close. It seems like a simple prediction. It's the 2 seed against the 7 seed. The Sounders, who have always been good in the playoffs, and have always been, you could call them one of the dominant teams in the West, but they've never really won that Western Conference title well. This season they came mightily close, but before they choked, it must be said, and allowed Colorado to leapfrog them. RSL has only won once against Seattle in the last 5 matches, and that was the last time they played with a goal from Damir Krylach. Seattle, they've only won once in their last 8. RSL have been in pretty good form since having a little bit of a surge late season to push themselves into the playoffs. The late Damir Krylach goal just stuck a dagger in the hopes of Galaxy fans and sent the RSL fans into a frenzy. It'll put them on some confidence. They'll enter the playoffs on a high, but despite that, I think that RSL will fall to Seattle, who are typical Seattle fashion, going to win this one. Now we're going to move on to the East. We're going to start off with Atlanta NYCFC. You don't need me to tell you that this is an even one. In their 10 meetings, NYCFC and Atlanta have faced. NYCFC has won 3, Atlanta has won 4, and they've drawn 3 times. That's almost as even as you can get. They've met in the postseason once, and that was when Atlanta absolutely destroyed NYCFC 4-1 in aggregate. Atlanta are in fine form just in time for postseason, and it must be said that they, to me, look like one of the underdogs for the Eastern Conference. They've only lost 1-7. They turned it on at the right time. I think they'll edge out NYCFC. They've only ever won one playoff game, which was that win, I believe, over. I don't even remember who was over. But I think Atlanta will edge out NYCFC, who, it must be noted, will be without Keaton Parks and potentially Alexander Cowens. Now, if they don't have Alexander Cowens, that would force James Sands to move it into center back, and I believe Tavon Gray would be at right back. And Acevedo in the midfield alongside Morales, their team would be greatly weakened if Alex Cowens is missing from action. Even if he's not missing from action, still Tavon Gray will be playing at right back most likely. I'd say it's pretty likely that they'll lose to Atlanta here, given their luck in the playoffs. Next up, you have Orlando, Nashville. It's a brief history. They've played 6 times, surprisingly, despite Nashville only being in the league since 2020. 2020, yes. They've played 6 times. They've drawn 4 times, and each team has been victorious once. You would think that this game would go to extra time, which is what I'm going with. It'll probably be a 0-0 or a 1-1. Nashville will probably defend for their lives, and Orlando will just completely pepper Zimmerman, Willis, Romney, all those guys. Orlando will get a penalty in extra time, I think. DK will rush into the box, and Jack Mayer will not know how to handle it, and they'll bundle him over in the box. Nani's penalty will be saved by Joe Willis, and then the faces of Nashville fans fall as Daryl DK smashes home the rebound, and Orlando advance to the conference semifinals. Now, the next prediction hurts me to say, but I think it's kind of inevitable. Red Bulls, we snuck into that 7th seed. Virtue of our defense and goalkeeper really stepping up because our attack was not doing it, albeit our midfield was sensational. It really doesn't take a genius to pick Philly to beat us. We haven't really had good form against the Union in recent times. We haven't won against Philly in our last 6 games and in our last 4 at Subaru Park. I don't think that there's a good chance that we advance here. Hopefully I'm wrong, but considering what I've just said, there's a pretty good chance that Philly will beat us. Now we're going to move on to the conference semis now. First up, we're going to talk about Minnesota, Colorado. Now, last year I put a lot of faith in Minnesota. I had them reaching the MLS Cup. I had them beating Seattle in the conference semis, I believe. Or I had them winning the conference final, sorry. And I was within a whisker of that coming true. Minnesota had a 2-0 lead. Seattle completely turned it on at the end. And that's one of the reasons I think that I'm backing them so much this year after that. But this claim that I'm going to make might seem outlandish. I think Minnesota will beat the number 1 seed here, Colorado. Like I said, they're the number 1 seed. They should make light work of Minnesota. They'll be valiant. Minnesota will come out of the gates fighting. Considering Colorado is I don't know how much they've really had success in the postseason. I don't really remember much of Colorado in the postseason. I don't think this is out as, let's say, outlandish of a claim as it may seem, because on the one hand, yes, Colorado's the number 1 seed. They have been amazing this season, an all-around team. It's a really good team, but I think Minnesota will win this one. Watch this space. Emmanuel Reynoso will produce a masterclass. 2 assists, Adrian Hunou brace. You heard it here first. Anyway, yeah. That is my bold. That is one of my bold claims. I have a couple more waiting in the wings. Vancouver beating SKC was one as well. Seattle versus Vancouver is the next one. Unfortunately, this is where I think Vancouver's run will end. They are, if the Red Bulls don't win, the team I would like to see win this the most. The facts don't lie, though. I mean, if Vancouver win this, I would be pleasantly surprised. Seattle's won 17 of the 33 games between Seattle and Vancouver. Vancouver's only won 7 times against Seattle. That cannot be ignored. That really cannot be ignored. Vancouver's success in this Cascadia Cup matchup has been appalling. Incredibly bad. For that reason, they haven't beaten them since 2017. They haven't won in Seattle since 2016. I don't think they'll pull off another upset here. Seattle will not make light work of them. Vancouver will definitely give them a challenge, but Seattle will inevitably pull through here. Next up, we have Atlanta versus the Revolution. Here is where I think my boldest prediction comes into play. Because whilst Atlanta are in good form, they've only lost 1-7. Predicting them to beat the Revs is a claim in and of itself. You don't need me to explain why it's such a bold prediction, but I'll do it anyway. The Revs have the record points total. They are in fine form. Just in general throughout the season, they've been in fine form. However, take this into consideration. Yes, they'll probably play an exhibition match, which will help them out here, keep their fitness levels high. Tajon Buchanan, among Matt Turner, who hasn't really played for the SMT recently. Among others, Adam Books, I believe, they've all been on international duty. That'll keep some of them fresh. But, crucially, the Revs lost 1-0 in their last MLS game of the season. I know they had nothing to play for. They keep it into account because it was against Miami. You want to end the season on a high, going into a long break. A long break without playing games. You'll play a couple exhibition matches. Realistically, that won't get you ready. Atlanta will have come off the back of a fiery encounter against NYCFC. For this reason, the Revs have beaten Atlanta twice. Only twice. They've come this season, both of them. But that was when Atlanta were in bad form. They are now in great form. I think Bo will score first half brace. And then Atlanta will come to life and realize, hold on, we're Atlanta United. We have Josef Martinez, Luis Araujo, Ezequiel Barco, Marcelino Moreno. I could go on with how good this team is. And then Luis Araujo, Josef Martinez combine in an Almiron and Martinez-esque way to make it 3-2. Atlanta advances in a thrilling conference semifinal. Finally, for the East, I know I just took an immense amount of time discussing Atlanta versus the Revolution, but we'll move on to Philly versus Orlando. I think Philly will edge out Orlando in penalties. It'll be the end of Orlando's run. In the 14 meetings, the match has ended in a draw the same amount of times that Philly has won, and more times than Orlando has won. I think it'll be a 0-0 in normal time. Extra time, all hell will break loose. Nani will be studs up, cleated by Jose Martinez, who is sent off. Nani will whip in a beautiful cross, and the ball will be headed in by Daryl DK. The call will go to VAR, and DK is deemed to be offside. And then, in the penalty shootout, Orlando are massacred. Andre Blake will save every single penalty. And Orlando will be eliminated. Watch as that exact scenario plays out. Probably not the exact scenario, but I think it'll be pretty similar. I think Philly will inevitably defeat Orlando. In the conference final, we have Seattle versus Minnesota. Now, in this Western Conference final rematch, Minnesota's run will come to an end. They have been brilliant all postseason. They have upset the odds on 2 occasions. However, against the other Cascadia Cup team that is located in the United States, I'm sorry, Vancouver, Seattle will topple them. We all remember that Western Conference final. I've already described it in this video. Seattle came back from 2-0 down, and I would have had the number 1 bracket in the world, but Seattle were like, are you sure about that? Thank you, Rudy Diaz and Svensson. And I think Seattle will win this one on penalties. It'll be 2-2 in normal time. Laud will score in the 110th minute. Rudy Diaz will then swiftly equalize in the 112th minute. The shootout will be intense, incredibly. And the final penalty, the game-winning one, will be scored by Jordan Morris. The man plagued with injury this season, a season-ending almost injury for Swansea City before coming back to Seattle from loan. It'll have affected him, but he'll score the game-winning penalty to send Seattle to the MLS Cup. And then Atlanta versus Philly. I'll get a lot of flack for this, considering this MLS Cup is bold in and of itself. Number 5 seed versus number 2 seed. What I think wins. It would have to be Philly, right? Philly are really underrated this season, in my opinion. The likes of Daniel Gazdag have turned it on for both club and country. Their whole team is well-rounded. Some really promising academy guys, including brother of USMNT star Brendan Paxton Aronson. I think Atlanta will reach the MLS Cup. A tightly contested 1-0 Atlanta win. Josef will score the single goal, and Percibilka will have a late leveler ruled out. That being said, by MLS Cup, Seattle versus Atlanta, I really sound like an MLS writer with this fucking MLS Cup. But with that being said, I do actually think that this is going to be the MLS Cup. Now, it's a bold prediction if you take out the views of some tinted eyeglasses MLS writers who are heavily biased. In the final, I think Seattle will sweep Atlanta 3-1. They've only met once. It was this season in a 1-1 draw, and a Josef Martinez goal denied Seattle the 3 points. This time around, the game will be in Seattle. A rampant Seattle crowd. Seattle will win. João Paulo will score an absolute worldie to open the scoring, and Yeimar will double the lead from a corner. Then Moreno will pull one back from close range, and Rui Diaz will stick a dagger in the hearts of Atlanta fans and MLS writers. And Seattle will be victorious 3-1. With that being said, boys, it's a lengthy video today. I know. I covered these playoffs extensively. Went through my picks extensively. Explained my reasoning extensively. It was a pleasure recording this, and it was a pleasure making these picks and explaining my reasoning. I've had a lot of fun making this video. Had a lot of fun explaining my picks. Hopefully you guys have a lot of fun, as I probably will, other than the fact that my Red Bulls will probably lose in Philly, as I probably will, watching these incredible playoff matches play out. It should be a good one. That being said, boys, I'll catch y'all later. Peace.